Welcome into this final major edition recap of the 151st Open Championship at Royal Liverpool. Kind of lame. We'll get into Brian Harman's win, and we'll talk plenty about Brian Harman. We want to touch on some other stuff first, though. And of course, this podcast is all brought to you by our presenting sponsor. You see it up in the corner there. If you're watching on the YouTube, if you're live with us, welcome in. If you're listening to this later, make sure to check us out on YouTube at Big Drive Energy. But Pins and Aces is the best golf brand. They hooked it up for our tournament, the Midsummer Open here in Denver. This past Friday, they hooked it up with towels and polos, which will be available at the dnvrlocker.com. Make sure to check those out. They're the ice cream with the little logo in them. Phenomenal polos. We sold a ton at the event. We still have a little bit left of Pins and Aces polos and towels, which you'll be able to get at our next event in September here in Denver. But Pins and Aces is the best golf brand. They're made right here in Colorado where we live. And Mitchell is an employee of them. Pins and Aces is just all around the shit. That's the hats we're rocking today. And make sure you check their website out and use our promo code BDE, and you're saving 15% off your entire order plus free shipping. They've got joggers. They've got a new Colorado collection of polos and a hoodie. Their hoodies are the most comfortable hoodies I've ever worn, and they've got the sick designs in the hood. I'm sure you could sell some of the product, right, Mr. Employee up there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not a tough sell once you feel how the polos feel, how the hats feel, how the hoodies feel. Everything is so comfortable. And then the coolest looking designs out there. If you want to look good, you rock Pins and Aces. That's it.
Yep. So you head over to pinsandaces.com, use that promo code BDE, and you're saving 15% off your entire order plus free shipping. All right, let's tee it up with the last major of 2023. Give me your thoughts.
Well, so first thought right off the bat, because they just finished up here. It's so crazy that none of his family is there. Apparently, his parents are there. So the family are all big. The family's full of hunters and like fishermen, things like that, which the internet has found out and tried to immediately cancel Brian Harman for, which is something we'll get into. But his parents are like in the Florida Keys, and his wife and kids are, I think, in Syracuse, New York, at her parents' place, it sounded like. So he legitimately had nobody to hug but his caddy coming off the 18th green, which is just wild. And I don't know if it was because he didn't think he was going to win or they already kind of had this pre-planned, but I feel like the family should have been on a private jet over to Royal Liverpool yesterday with Harman having this kind of lead. I don't see why they weren't there, but maybe it was another like vibes thing too, where he's like, I've made it this far this week, so I don't need you guys there with me on Sunday, if he's already played this well the first 3 rounds. But a few stats, I started digging into some of Harman's stats because credit to Spencer on last week's podcast, the preview for this major. He said that Brian Harman, he did not have Brian Harman on his card, which is a real treat. We just keep talking about guys that are going to win, and we don't have them on our betting cards. So that's on us. But Spencer legitimately said the winner is going to be 9 to 12 under. Harman finished at 13. And he was like, I think that a shorter hitter with a really good short game and really good wedge play is going to win this week. And that is exactly what happened. Brian Harman, you take one look at the guy. He's 5 foot. He's listed at 5'7", 150 pounds, and obviously not near as big as a lot of these other guys. I would love to see him next to Sepp Straka, because I think Straka's like 6'4", probably like 250. Just an absolute unit.
Real quick, let's check this out. What's
that?
Let's see what went down last week on Big Drive Energy. This is why you guys listen. Maybe don't take all of our bets, but this is why right here. For hitters, the guys like the Brian Harmans, who he's one of my kind of dark horse picks, not officially on my card, but a guy like that just puts it and chips it extremely well. doesn't necessarily hit it that far and hits it straight is going to do in an event like this at this golf course.
Yeah, I mean,
what a treat.
Holy shit. So one of my buddies just texted me. Shout out Adam Feldman. Actually Missy's coworker. Super into golf, super into betting golf. He hit Brian Harman for $65 at 125 to 1. He made $8,100 off of that win for Brian Harman.
Oh my God. Was that off the pod or did he just have that?
I think he just had that. He gambles every week. He does listen to the pod. I don't know if it was he does bet pretty well though. I know he's won a few pretty big bets that he sent me, but I'm sure $8,200 is got to be his biggest hit because otherwise I would have heard about it. But just a lot of people were talking about him before the week for being a guy that where he is in the world ranking. What is he top before this event? He was top 35. Was he 32nd in the world?
Yeah. So this is these are some stats that I saw before the event. Of course, I hope this guy that I follow on Twitter also decided to bet what he was talking about. But let's see here. He tweeted official world golf ranking top 30, 3 straight top 20s, 2 straight top 20s at the Open, 3 runner-ups this season, best on positional courses, 175 to 1. Talking about Brian Harman. Absolutely sickening.
Well, and I will say I did take him in our pool. I still finished 35th out of like 50 people because I picked Shane Lowry, Sam Burns, and Keegan Bradley, and they all missed the cut. So that was very disappointing. But I started, like I said, digging into some of his stats like throughout this year. So he is second on the entire tour this year in bogey avoidance, which is a major factor, especially in majors like this, where on a Sunday like this, where there's guys making bogeys left and right, like he is the king of hitting it in the middle of the green and 2-putting. And then you couple that today with him dropping in a few 20, 30, 40 footers. And I mean, so let's go back just a little bit. Because here are some other stats that I looked up and saw on the PGA Tour app, which is surprisingly in depth. His first and second round scoring this entire season, he is, I think, outside of the top 100. Where did I took a, this is great right here. I'm pulling it up. His round 1 scoring average is actually 32nd on tour, just under 70. His round 2 scoring average is 135th on tour, averaging a 71. So let's be real. Brian Harman won this on Friday and Saturday. Like he was 10 under after the second round. Nobody even got to 10 under for all 4 days. So unless you saw him going backwards over the weekend, which a lot of people were hoping for, which just didn't happen because he just will par you to death. He won that tournament basically he shot 65 on Friday, bogey free, 4 birdies and an eagle on 18. And that got him to 10 under. And that pretty much won him the event. He shot 4 under Thursday, 6 under Friday, and then could kind of coast through the weekend, and that was the other thing too that I saw is he made 6 bogeys this week and 4 of those he followed up with a birdie. So he was just great at bouncing back. Like there was really no point today where I felt like he was losing a handle on the championship. You know what I mean? He was just super, super solid, made a few really long putts and just hit a bunch of greens. And the few greens he didn't hit, like that one, he was in like foot long fescue on the right side of the green. Couldn't even see the ball. We're like, oh, he's got to make bogey here. Somehow hits it out to like 8 feet and makes par. And then of course the stat that was all over TV, I think he finally missed 1 putt inside of 10 feet, but he was, I want to say 56 of 57 inside of 10 feet for the week. So that's definitely an outlier, statistically speaking, that is going to give you a victory like this, where he ends up winning by 6 shots. Like you put it that well, you scramble well, you hit a bunch of greens, and there's really no, there's really no question why he won this week.
Yeah, it's absurd just the amount of times that his prevent defense is the best in the league. If we're relating this to, football season's coming up, it's the final big golf tournament of the year until we get to the Ryder Cup, which will be fun. But he's not a guy that if he was sitting at 8 or 9 under going into today and somebody else was at 11 or 12, you're like, oh, worried about him catching him. But it set up perfectly for him once he made eagle on 18 on Friday, and went from 8 to 10 under. I tweeted something from our golf account. Maybe make sure you're following us on Twitter at Big Drive Energy. But I was like, if Harman shoots even par, does anybody catch him? And I think like 65% of the vote was that somebody would catch him. And you saw what Rahm did yesterday. You saw a couple of different really low, lowish rounds from guys 4 or 5 under, which was pretty low at this. Unfortunately, I missed my bet of exactly 64 being the low round because Rahm had to go and shoot 63. So shout out to him. But I think 65% of the votes said that somebody would catch him at 10 under. And now maybe that changes. I don't know. You can't predict what would happen if certain players were, 2 shots off the lead or 3 shots off the lead going into today and going into the back 9, or maybe it makes Harman a little more nervous. But 10 under would have won the event essentially. And he finished at 13 under. And I think just his ability to bounce back, he talked a lot about during this week about his mental and how he, kind of it was tweeted out there. Like he lets his thoughts wander, and there could have been with the 18th hole setup, there could have been a Van de Velde situation for sure. But luckily for him, he's a lefty. So that right doesn't come in, poles don't come into play as much as like a push slice would for a right-handed player. That 18th hole, let's talk about that for a second. That absolutely hosed us this week. That 18th hole in itself cost you with your picks 2 top 10s, because Tyrrell Hatton made a 9 there, and Victor Hovland made cost me one of my picks. Ricky Fowler made an 8 there, and both of those guys finished 3 and 4 shots respectively out of the top 10. So shout out to the 18th hole. What did you think about it? Did you think it was a little cheesy with the out of bounds being as close as it was, or do you think it was a good golf hole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really kind of did its job with the amount of out of bounds that there was. It forced guys to go left, and then the guys hardcore enough to take it on, because there actually is out of bounds on the 16th at St. Andrews that has kind of the same type of feel to it. Is there's out of bounds, there's a fence line running all entirely up the right side, but there's miles of area left to hit it, so you never even flirt with that right edge of it. So I'm sure that's why it's not really necessarily talked about, because there's so much room to the left. But real quick, so Christo Lamprecht, I just probably butchered that name, but he was the low amateur, so they're bringing out him and Brian Harman, and this kid is 6'8", like 230, 240, just looks like a fucking linebacker, and can produce ball speeds north of 190 miles an hour. And he was actually leading after day 1, or tied for the lead at 5 under, and he ended up finishing 74th. He made the cut, I think, I want to say like on the number, or just right there, but he was leading after day 1, and everybody's kind of like, who is this dude? Everybody wanted to see the moment with him next to Harman, which I think we're going to get, because this guy is freaking massive. But he did struggle pretty mightily. Let's see. So round 1, he shot 5 under. Round 2, he shot 79. So he finished the first 2 days at 3 over, which I think was the cut on the number. Was it 3 over?
It was 3 over was the cut on the number.
Yep.
Exactly.
So he finished on the number, and then 76 in round 3, and then today he shot 74. So rough last 3 days for him, but I just want to see it. It's like everybody on the internet was like, the Jose Altuve Aaron Judge picture is going to be Brian Harman next to this guy, because there's a massive difference. But that is the ultimate beauty of golf, is a guy that if you were to just pick these two next to each other, say in a pickup basketball game, this Christo dude is getting picked first overall and Harman's getting picked last. And Harman just beat him by 21 shots this week. So he just had to tilt the mic down. Like the literal mic stand is as tall as he is. He's not a big dude. I think I'm about the same height as he is. I don't feel like I look that small, but maybe on TV, it's probably because I weigh like twice what he does. Because it has him listed at 150 pounds, which he's probably lucky the wind didn't pick up too heavy because he would have just blown away with the wind. He's a pretty small dude, but like credit to him, obviously he boat raced everyone and just in control of his ball all week, knew exactly where it was going, hits a nice little like trap draw almost exclusively, and chips and putts the lights out of it. Like he's basically lefty Zach Johnson back in the day.
Yep, and Zach Johnson's also won himself an Open Championship, so kind of fits the game. We knew it, I knew it, but just couldn't pull the trigger on the Harmanator. But I guess, did you hear his comments too about, I guess people, it's funny because we haven't gotten a major championship.
Bless you.
Whoa. We haven't gotten a major championship in a while with somebody winning it where like the crowd's completely behind them. Maybe a little bit with John Rahm winning the Masters this past year, but it feels like the last couple of majors, like when Wyndham Clark won the US Open, it was everybody was cheering for Ricky Fowler. And then, this one, everybody wanted Rory or Rahm at this point, especially being European, the USA guys were a little put on the back burner, but it's kind of weird because Harman's not like a guy you would normally root against. He's a guy that seems like a lot of people would root for. He was a great amateur golfer, just a smaller dude, doesn't hit it as far, and kind of is defying the test of time in golf with the way he plays.
Yeah, the style of his play is definitely not very similar to really anybody in the game of golf nowadays. Anybody that's coming up, it is very rare that you find a player that doesn't hit it that hard and just really manages his game as well as Harman does, because Harman is like the ultimate game manager. And so we'll give a little rundown on Harman because Georgia Bulldogs have had a pretty good week. Brian Harman's a Georgia Bulldog, graduated. This is his 12th year on tour, which is absolutely insane. Like, would you have guessed that Harman's been out on tour for 12 years?
No, I would not have. And then it showed him and this is only 6 years ago, but he was leading. He had the 54-hole lead at the 2017 US Open and ended up losing that. Yeah, against, I think it was Justin Thomas was up there. Rory was up there. I forget who actually won that event, but he shot even par that day and finished tied for second.
It must have been a long time ago if Justin Thomas was at the top of the leaderboard.
No doubt. Do we want to talk about that guy for a minute? Holy shit.
His game has gotten off the rails. And it is crazy because when he came out, his swing is very unique. And I hate to say it, but from a technical perspective, that swing does not generally work on the PGA Tour. Like his shaft is very vertical at the top. He brings it down in the downswing relatively vertically. There's not a lot of laying off of the club. The club is pretty straight up and down. And so now he's starting to hit these big fades when he was playing really well back in his heyday, which, and let me preface it with this. I think he can get back to being an elite player. He's definitely got all the tools. His putter has let him down mightily this year, but then he's just not hitting it as well as I think he's used to hitting it. So the long game has gotten a little off the rails, and who knows how awkward is that got to be when your dad is your swing coach and you're playing like shitty golf. Like, do you consider firing your own dad? Do you consider going somewhere else? And like, do you think your dad would have the presence of mind to be like, you should go work with somebody else? You need a different set of eyes on this. Or is he just going to ride it out with his dad the rest of his life? Because, for where he was, he's made the FedEx Cup playoffs. I want to say every year he's been on tour, last 7 straight years, I want to say. And this year, I think he's still on the outside looking in. So he's actually going to go play in the 3M Open next week in Minnesota in order to try to get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. So very weird position for him, and misses the cut again this week. And he's talking about, we, like he's French. He's saying we this, we that. And ultimately it comes down to his performance. Like, yeah, you have your mental coach, you have this, you have that. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the beauty of golf, and also not at the same time, is it's on nobody but him. He's got to go out there and play well. And I think he realizes that. But the whole like team aspect of golf when things aren't going well is weird. Like, are you blaming your personal trainer that you missed the cut this week? Are you blaming your dad? Or it doesn't come down to
Dad.
anything. Yeah. It's all my dad's fault.
Yeah, so he is currently sitting at 75 in the FedEx Cup rankings. Official World Golf ranking is still 20th, but that's, how that is. He has, of course, 0 wins this year, 0 seconds, and 0 thirds, and has 3 top 10s all season.
Wow.
And fired a crisp 82 on Thursday.
I mean, luckily, one of his really good buddies, Jordan Spieth, has gone through something similar. So I think, and Jordan Spieth has decided to stay with the same swing coach regardless, even though he started blowing it all over the map. And I'm not saying I don't support these guys sticking with a swing coach, but ultimately, when you're working with dudes and like you're the only tour pro working with them, you got to kind of know that something may be up there. Like, I don't know. That's just my personal feeling. There's so many guys on tour that have a stable of guys and are up and coming, and that really know modern technology and what they're talking about. And Justin Thomas's dad is a 60-some-year-old PGA guy. No knock on that. And I'm not saying I don't really know his teaching style, but ultimately you need to have somebody that's knows the game in a moderate sense and can help you get out of this rut, because we've talked about it at several points during our podcasting career. There's players that can play successful golf and actually, like, it has nothing to do with the teacher. Like Tiger Woods, perfect example is Tiger Woods with Hank Haney back in the day. Everyone was like, flocking to Hank Haney because he was Tiger's swing coach when he was winning. And it's like, no, Tiger's just that good. He's just that physically talented and head and shoulders above everybody else, mentally, physically, everything. So giving credit to a swing coach, like when you do well, then that all has to fall on catching some of the blame when players are struggling. Like if you're not learning to adapt, and it's like everything in life, it's easy when it's going well, but then when times get tough, it's a different ball game. So I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole, but Jordan Spieth, his good buddy, has also had a point in his career where he completely fell off the map and has kind of clawed his way back. He's definitely not where he was, contending at what seemed like every major. But I think Justin Thomas will ultimately be fine. One dude I want to talk about is Sepp Straka, because he always seemed like, especially last year, he kind of came onto the scene. He got his first tour win. I think his first win was last year. Is that correct? Does that ring a bell?
Yep. And then he won, of course, the John Deere Classic this year.
Yep. He won the John Deere this year, played an unbelievable final round. But the more I watch this dude hit the ball, he is just a machine. When he gets on, I would probably say he's one of the best ball strikers on tour. And his putter let him down massively today. But he is one of those dudes that could be a guy that's at the top of major leaderboards going forward, because now he's been there. He knows how comfortable he is. He's learned from it. But one interesting thing that I wanted to talk about, Sepp Straka, is this dude wears Squares golf shoes. Have you heard of those? Have you seen those?
No, I haven't.
They're the square
I
toe
know
golf.
I've heard of them for sure. Aren't they like the most comfortable golf shoe in the world, or tout
That
themselves that way?
yes, that's what they market themselves as. It's basically a square-toed golf shoe. And they've probably paid Nick Faldo millions of dollars to go, or I think it was Nick Faldo that was promoting them years like last year, 2 years ago. But it's a square-toed golf shoe, almost looks like a fucking cowboy boot. And the marketing ploy is that it allows you to rotate better because you have better balance basically. So you have like support over out on your left, like outside toes, as opposed to a typical rounded shoe where you're gonna like roll over on your ankle or whatever. But just a very like that'd be like somebody rocking like alien wedges out here. I feel like it's such an infomercial type of product that they've just got a dude at the top of the leaderboard at a major wearing square shoes, and it's spelled SQUAIRZ. Like it is gimmicky from the word go. And Sepp is out here wearing square shoes, and he even has a Squares logo on his shirt. So I don't know what kind of money they're paying this dude to wear his shoes or wear their shoes, but it's probably not enough because they got a lot of love on TV today for being a like a bazooka driver, the equivalent of like a bazooka driver or what were those clubs back in the day that had like the triangle face? That oh god, there was
Some sort of a shark.
it was a long drive like club that was just shaped so misshapen. But anywho, I just had to shout out Squares for some more no free ads, a free ad for them because that shit looks god awful. And yet Sepp Straka is rocking them. So, respect to him, I guess.
Well, I like Sepp Straka a lot more. Finding out he's from Australia, part of our boy
It's
with Cam Smith. What?
He's from Austria.
Damn, I missed an L.
Oh
I'm so
my
used
god.
to not taking
We
L's
are
that I
gonna
don't
cook
even
the
see
shit out
them.
of this.
Oh fuck. I'm so used to not taking L's, dude. I don't even read
He's
them anymore.
Austrian, bro. Oh my god.
Are you positive?
I'm dead positive.
Well, that's sick.
I can say that for a fact. So
But
yeah.
no, he's on fire right now. Maybe probably a European Ryder Cup team player. Shot his lowest round of his career just a couple weeks ago at the John Deere, was on 59 watch, and then finishes T2. And let's just talk about the whole cluster of dudes there at T2 today. Tom Kim is an absolute warrior, man. Like grinder, like him, and I think he's like the new Sunjay M to me. And Sunjay M really stuck out to me when he was kind of going toe to toe with Dustin Johnson in the COVID Masters, so the November one. Just a guy that Sunjay M plays in like every event, and I think Tom Kim is kind of getting to that point too, where I think he's only 22 or 23 years old. We had the clips from him jumping on his caddy's back. I guess he turned his ankle, wasn't feeling great physically, and goes out there, and you're like, oh, he's gonna, he's not gonna play. He's not gonna be able to play that well. And he shot the lowest round in the Open Championship today. Him and Aaron Maronk and Scotty Scheffler all shot 4 under. Yeah. So the lowest round of the tournament on a major championship Sunday, Tom Kim finds himself T2. And this guy, like, I had him on the betting card last week at the Scottish. He had a horrible fucking 72nd hole where he just putted it all over the place. But it didn't phase him. He comes into the Open Championship, and he's a guy that, like, I think is worth betting, like, next season on, like, all the majors. Like a guy that maybe will do that at the beginning of the 2023 season, like pick 3 or 4 guys that you just auto bet their odds at that time for every major, because they're going to win one. It's crazy to, while I will touch on him for just a little bit because he was on my betting card. It's kind of crazy to think Scotty Scheffler didn't win a major this year. And he's like leading the tour on everything except for putting. And I saw a tweet yesterday that was like, Scotty Scheffler is ranked 100 and I want to say I'm going to butcher the number, but 132nd in putting this week. And it was like, well, there's only 131 players in the field. But that kind of adds up. Like, that's how bad he is with the flat stick. And he still continues tee to green to dominate. Short game's great. But it's crazy how you have to kind of put everything together. And you look at Harman, and now Harman's had a great week in terms of striking the ball this past week. You can't win an Open Championship without that. But the dude wins off of his putting. Like a Scotty Scheffler with Brian Harman's putting is Tiger Woods circa early 2000s, maybe a better player.
Yeah, no, I would agree, man. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the broadcast booth this week. Once again, very unimpressed overall with Paul Azinger. Really doesn't bring much to the table in terms of competent commentary. Rory was had just finished his 15th hole. He was 6 shots back with 3 holes left, and Azinger was like, "I think his hopes are dashed now." Like, oh, is this it? Like, on the 15th hole, you think that now he doesn't have a chance? He's been 6 back the entire day. He actually played well today. He shot 68, but there was at no point. I mean, maybe either way. Let's just say this: Harman needed to come back to the field. He won by 6 shots, and so he didn't. But even then, like, Rory finished at 6 under. If he would have gotten it to 8 or 9, then sure, then maybe there's a chance, you know. And we can kind of get into that a little bit, because once you separate yourself in that wide of a margin, it can kind of go one of two ways, where you either feel like you can put it on cruise control, or you get lackadaisical and you start hitting, you know, some wonky shots. But overall, I just got to get back to it. The broadcast booth in general does not have a feel of like, I want Jim Nance in the booth. I want Tariq. Like, Tarico was there, but I want all of Mike Tirico. Like, give me some iconic dudes. These are 2 announcers that are, you know, if you're a golf fan, you know who they are, but the national media, they really aren't national media by any means, and they're calling the biggest tournaments of the year, and it just has like it does not give me a major championship feel that I want. The announcing is just kind of blah. There's not a lot of oomph to behind all the announcing, in my opinion. So I was somewhat disappointed with just that in general, but that's been every major this year. The announcing really has not been that good. Like, the US Open has been a snooze fest, or was a snooze fest. This week was pretty much a snoozer coming down the weekend. PGA was fun. The Masters was fun, but it's just another one of these where it's like, are we really going to have to sit through Brian Harman on Sunday with a 5-6 shot lead the entire day? And nobody, like, I was just waiting for somebody to get on a complete heater. And that's when Sepp Straka, he was like 2 or 3 under through the first like 6 holes. And I was like, dude, I know this guy has a heater in him, because we just saw it a couple weeks ago 2 weeks ago at the John Deere. I was like, if he can just start making some putts, and he was burning every single edge there was out there to burn. He was striking it so well. And even Rory was the same way. He had so many opportunities to get within 2-3 of the lead, and just could not remove himself and really kind of get out of that cluster of guys at 6-7 under par. But that's what I was waiting for all day, was just somebody to make a fun run of it. Like, I think we all expected Brian Harman to win, but I wanted to see somebody get it to 9 or 10 and at least give him a little bit of push, but we didn't even get that today.
Yeah, the closest somebody got, I think, was when Sepp Straka got to 8, but by that point, it was so late that, you know, nobody was catching Brian Harman. And Brian Harman, shout out to him just for, you know, holding it together, but it's not like he just went out there and made 18 pars. Like, he made bogey on the first hole. And that's something that, like, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's, you know, for a guy that hasn't won a major championship, you know, it's not necessarily something that they can recover from. And then he made back-to-back birdies middle of the round, like, frustrating. And if you haven't listened to one of our major championship broadcasts before, yeah, we're obviously cheering for our guys that we bet on each week, but we're also just cheering for a fun ending. And we did not, you know, definitely didn't get it this week. Not saying Harman's a boring player, but he played a boring 18 holes, which is what I would have done if I was him. I would have tried to do. Boring is not a word that I ever use with my own personal golf game, but he made it boring. He made some birdies right back. Like he made a bogey and then he'd make a birdie right back. He just was pretty unflappable, hitting it out of the rough, hitting it out of the fescue. Even having 200 plus yards in on almost every par four today, just seemed to hit the middle of the green. And real quick, we do all of our betting with our new partner over at Bet365. Use that code DNVR365 at sign up. Bet365, they are the ones that like pioneered in-game live betting, and there's so many fun bets to put on every single golf tournament through Bet365. One of them was the lowest score. I had that at plus 170. Rambo just had to go and shoot 63, but when he was 7 under through the 17th hole yesterday, I know 18 was a birdie-ish hole. It's a par 5. But I was like, oh, Rahm's going to hit this for me on Saturday, because it didn't sniff it Thursday or Friday. Like nobody even got to 6 under those 2 days. And then Rahm just came out guns blazing on Saturday. But there's so many great bets you can bet with Bet365. A couple bets that I did hit off the card. I had Rosner in the top 30 at plus 400, which was sick. I had Emiliano Grillo. I always fuck it up. I'm just going to call him Grillo. I think they called him that on the broadcast, so I felt a little vindicated there.
Yeah, I heard.
I had him at plus 35,000 to win it. There, I didn't see if there was a cash out option. I'm not a big cash out guy, but there was probably a cash out option middle of Friday when he was actually leading the event, and then he came back to the field as well. But make sure to check out Bet365. There's 80 million users worldwide, and you can live stream they live stream almost 800,000 events each year. So once you bet on it, you can watch it. So if you're having TV issues, or you're having you don't have the channel, which happens a lot in golf, make sure to head over to Bet365, put a live bet in, and then you can go and watch that from the app on Bet365. So use that promo code DNVR365 and you get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Mitchell and I both got signed up this past week. We're using our bonus bets each week. Both of ours did not hit on the big bet energy card. I had Michael Kim and Mitchell had Keegan Bradley. Both guys missed the cut, unfortunately, but we get a chance to throw in some free kind of long shots out there. Of course, I couldn't just bet Brian Harman as my long shot on there. That was great. Maybe I'll start going with my gut here, and anybody that I leave on the cutting room floor is the guy that I'm going to end up betting. But Bet365 is where we place all of our bets. So make sure to head over to the app, get it downloaded. It's such a great interface. They have so many bets that you can get down on not only golf, but baseball, football season's coming up. It's the perfect time to get signed up and use that $200 in free bets. I'm going to tell you guys about another partner that we had out at our golf tournament on Friday. Tastings. I may have hit the tasting table a few too many times, but Breckenridge Distillery, they've got the best bourbon in the world. They are the official bourbon of our favorite team, the Denver Broncos, and it's the world's highest distillery. So there is no bourbon in the entire world made at a higher elevation than at Breckenridge Distillery. They're one of the most highly awarded distilleries in the United States. The Breck Distillery is 3-time winner of the Icon Whiskey and 9-time winner of the Best American Blended Whiskey at the World Whiskey Awards by Whiskey Magazine in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 3 times this year in 2023. So make sure you're trying some Breck bourbon. It's our favorite stuff to drink just in a glass. I'm a rocks guy. I got the big rock that I put in my own freezer. Mitchell, you're more of I also have some of those those iron ice cubes that don't water it down.
Yeah, they don't dilute it. Those are good. Yeah, there's really no bad way to drink Breckenridge bourbon. I've drank it warm, and it is not my favorite. Well, obviously, no liquor is good when it's warm, but I would say Breck, I would even drink it warm because it's that freaking good. I've tailgate, I've taken shots, I've poured myself cocktails with some cubes in there. You can shoot it, you can sip it. you can do whatever you want with it. It is the best bourbon there is. Like I've been drinking it for years, and there's no other whiskey I would rather have as a sponsor. Honestly, they're the best.
Yeah, and so Breck Distillery is, of course, available in all 50 states. Shop at your local retailer or visit www.breckenridgedistillery.com for home delivery of the award-winning Breckenridge spirits. If you're not a whiskey person, that's okay. They've got an espresso vodka, they've got gin, they've got all sorts of spirits that they distill, so make sure to check them out. BreckenridgeDistillery.com. Also want to tell you guys about our great friends over at Burrito Express. If you're listening to us from the AZ, where it's been, poor guys, it's been 110 degrees for like a month straight, you can still go to the Burrito Express locations and get yourself a steak burrito. That is my absolute favorite. Their breakfast burritos are the best I've ever had. We're going to have them at every golf tournament. There's no better way to kick off a golf tournament than with a nice breakfast burrito, and then when you take some shots during the day or drink some beers, it doesn't hit you quite as much, and you're coherent by the 15th hole. So make sure to load up Burrito Express. Their Tempe location's awesome, right in the middle of the Arizona State campus. Check out Burrito Express and get the best burritos I've ever had if you're down in the Arizona area. It's always a stop we make when we're down there. Usually in the wintertime, not so much in the summertime, but wintertime, we're down there. We're at Burrito Express eating the best breakfast burritos in the world. All right. Where do you want to go next? You want to go a little more on Harman? You want to talk about Rory kind of making a little mini charge today? He kind of took the lid off of one with like a 60-footer on 3, made 3 straight birdies. Everybody's like, all right, here it is again. It's like clockwork on a Sunday with Rory at a major.
Yeah, we all knew he was going to top 10 it. That's why I think he was like minus odds to top 10 this week. But and that is the other thing too, is I've started to see people on social media talk about Rory's. I think he has 7 top 10s in his last 8 majors, which is very impressive. But ultimately, we're moving the goalposts for what he is supposed to be. He is supposed to be winning majors. He hasn't won one in now a decade. And are we like at the point in Rory's career where we're like stoked for him to top 10 at a major? Because don't get me wrong, that's very, very impressive. But ultimately, if you can't win any majors like he hasn't in the last decade, then what are we really talking about for where he ends up being considered on the all-time list? And legacy is like a big thing in golf. That's kind of I think Rory actually really cares about it, because that's one of the reasons he won't go to live. But legacy is like a term that gets thrown around quite a bit. So where do you feel like Rory's going to fall when this is all said and done if he never wins another major?
I think if he stacks up a few more like regular PGA Tour wins and gets to 40 wins, I still think like he'll go down as, he won't be, we always talk about, when we talk about tiers, there's always Tiger Woods and then there's everybody else. But I think he's still in that tier just right below Tiger. If we're talking about modern day golfers, let's put it that way. If
You're
we're leaving
like
out,
Phil, Rory.
we're talking like 2000 on, like Rory is still in that next tier of 5 or 6 guys.
I think Brooks is in there.
Brooks is an interesting case, because Brooks is like the opposite of Rory. He doesn't win and doesn't care to win your Ma and Pa PGA Tour event sponsored by Great Lakes, heating and cooling. He wants to win the big ones, and he shat on himself this week. Shout out me putting him on the card. All 3 of my guys just absolutely dicked themselves down. But but yeah, Brooks and Rory are 2 opposite players, but it's all perspective of like, okay, you look at, 2 blind resumes and you see Brooks has 5 majors, but not as many PGA Tour wins. And you see Rory's got all these PGA Tour wins, hasn't won a major since 2014. So now we're going on a full decade, which he still feels like he's in his 20s to me. Just watching him swing the club, he's got kind of it'll be interesting to see as he gets older how he moves the ball and still makes, if he still makes the same move that he's been able to make for his entire career. But I don't know. I still think he's still, if you're looking at immediate success right now, it's like Rahm and Scheffler. We did our tiered list. Like those 2 guys are still above all else, and Rory's like right below that. But if you're looking in terms of the last decade to the 2000s, after Tiger Woods, like Rory's right there for me.
No, I would agree with that. It's just, especially in the modern day, I don't think, so we have Tiger and we have Phil. Phil, I wouldn't even necessarily say is modern day. If we're talking, the last 10 years, I think Rory was anticipated to be far and away the best player of this generation. And it probably stems partially from everybody wanting to find another Tiger Woods and everybody wanting to find the next great guy. And Rory, by like you said, blind resume, nobody knows who this guy is. He comes out and does what he does. Is a very impressive resume. He's obviously a shoe-in for Golf Hall of Fame. But with the expectation that was put on him at a young age, and almost same with like Justin Thomas to a lesser extent, but you come out and you win a major, you win a lot of tournaments early in your career. And like Colin Morikawa, same thing. Wins a major, his second PGA Tour season now, or two majors. And now he's kind of taken that step back, and he's not quite as good as he was in those early years. And everybody's just so quick to crown a new Tiger Woods. Look at Scotty, look at Rahm, look at everybody wants to find that next superstar. And I don't know if, especially with how deep golf is anymore, if we're ever going to have another true superstar in the game of golf that just dominates week in, week out. It's just not feasible with how good the competition is. But ultimately, like if you ask Rory who's had the better career between him or Brooks, who do you think he would say?
Oh, he would say undoubtedly him.
Yeah, because of the PGA Tour wins, but ultimately we know that Rory cares more about the majors than he does anything. And I mean, I think by the time Brooks gets to Rory's age, Brooks is probably going to have 7 or 8 majors, in my opinion. And we can clip this and save it for 5 years, if hopefully we're still doing this podcast. But I think when Brooks gets to that age, like in his mid-30s, I think he'll have 7 or 8 by then. And it's just weird to see guys that, for a dude that is good as Rory is, to not be able to get over that hump of, putting together one really good round to put him in contention this week, where he's kind of playing catch up the entire time. I think he shot 69, 70, 71, and then finished up with a 69, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just, or no, that would put him at 5 under. He's
68 today.
Okay, 68. But overall, it's just one of those where you're just waiting for him, and he's hitting all these good putts and none of them are going in. And so I think he's probably getting very frustrated by the whole thing. And the longer he goes without winning one, the tougher it's going to be for him to win one. So I definitely think he's a guy. And we could be sitting here next year talking about how Rory's won 2 majors this season. Like he definitely has that sort of potential in his game. It's just about putting it all together. And I think that's the most frustrating for him is, first of all, the expectations are wildly huge. But second of all, he knows he has all the tools in the toolbox to get the job done. So it ultimately comes down to him going out and executing, which he hasn't been able to do. But don't you find it funny that people are now like, oh, all of his top 10s at majors are so impressive? And it's like, yeah, it's impressive, but he still hasn't won one in literally 10 years. Like,
yeah, they pushed the goalposts all the way back for him, and now they're moving them back forward when they realize how deep the field is, how, every time that there's a major, he's the favorite, or he's, right up there at the top, and he's the only guy everybody talks about. So I think it's the expectations for Rory that really bring him down, if you will, as far as how he's looked at. But I mean, looking at his bio and just some of his stuff, he's won 3 FedEx Cups in the last 9 years. So he's been the best on, you know what I mean? So like it's his career is still extremely, awarded, and he's still going to, like you said, Golf Hall of Fame 100%. But when it comes down to these majors, I've got a question for you. Do you think that Wyndham Clark and Brian Harman winning the US Open back and then the Open Championship back to back, like, are they kind of opening the door, if you will, for, boiling it down to a simple thing is our betting minds and our picks, but just in a world view of, and I'm going to say this with quotations, how easy majors are to win. Like, you don't have to be the most talented player out there to win majors. Like, when I boiled it down to my picks this week, I picked basically Scotty Scheffler, Brooks Koepka, and Ricky Fowler. None of them obviously won or even finished top 10, but I was like, it's a major. These guys, the Brian Harmans, and I said it out loud, they don't win majors. Are those guys bucking the trend now? Wyndham, we've known as a great player, but he's not like you called it and said that he has a game to win a major. But are we going to move into next year and give the guys that are sitting at, 20th to 70th on tour a really legit chance at winning any of these events? And the Masters is a little more specific, maybe, but any of the majors at these other courses can be won by anyone now, it seems like.
No, dude, I totally agree. And I think, who really likes this is all of the sports books that exist out there that a lot of people bet golf on, because it is so hard to bet golf. Like, and I know like I said, I've seen tickets of Brian Harman, guys making thousands of dollars on Brian Harman. But can you imagine the money that was put on Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Brooks Koepka this week, Cam Smith, like you name it. And those top 10 dudes, everybody that I would like to see like what the overall hold percentage was on all the golf bets, because all these dudes, like there's 10 guys and they are the most bet dudes far and away at every single major, because that's who everybody thinks is going to win. And it's one of those when you're gambling where, like, and this is what you told me before the week started. You're like, I just have 3 dudes that I cannot leave off my card because I would be sick to my stomach if they won and I wasn't on them, which is completely fair, because these dudes are, you think they're going to go out and win every major. Not Ricky, but between Scotty and Brooks, you got to anticipate that they're going to go and compete and maybe win every single time they tee it up at a major. So, and even same with John Rahm, same with Rory, like the odds are just so insane that Vegas has to love Brian Harman winning the championship, because ultimately they're paying out pretty hefty tickets. But they're guys, unless you're betting real heavy on Rory, minus 170 to top 10, there's so many bets where you're just like up shit's creek, because all of the big name dudes, maybe they top 10, but if you're betting on them to win, then it just makes it so much harder to bet golf when dudes like Brian Harman come out and win a major by 6. Like, it wasn't even close. So yeah, it definitely opens your mind up to like, it brings in a cluster, another, like you said, I think 20 to 30 players where you're like, they could win a major. Like, it is no longer just restricted to the top 10 players in the world that have been there, done that. Brian Harman has 2 PGA Tour wins before this, and Wyndham had 1. So like a combined, and then you look at Brooks and you look at John Rahm, the other 2 major winners this year, and there's definitely 2 separate groups there. But yeah, overall, I think it definitely has to change a lot of people's thinking when it comes down to the majors, and start thinking about taking, not necessarily horses for courses, but maybe a tournament that sets up well for a guy that's in the 30 to 50th ranking in the world. It's not just top 10 players winning majors anymore. That is a very good point, because thinking about that, and I got to bring up one other stat with Rory winning majors. Think about this. If Rory never wins another major, Tiger and Phil will both have won a major more recently than Rory.
Yeah, that's kind of a mind-blowing stat.
Doesn't that blow your mind? Like, when I saw that stat, I'm like, holy shit. Like, if Rory never wins another major, Tiger and Phil have both won majors more recently than Rory has. So that just kind of blows your mind to think that for what Rory was supposed to be and winning all these majors, he just hasn't really necessarily gotten the job done. I've got a few other notes. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think, talking about Rory McIlroy, Brian Harman, he's opened the door, man. He's opened the door for guys that fit a course to just lock in and go change their PGA Tour career and their life, essentially.
Right. Well, so here's a fun fact about Brian Harman, which I did not know. He is strictly right-handed at everything else except for golf. So Phil Mickelson was kind of the famous one for having done that, but now Harman is right-handed at everything. But then he also putts cross-handed. So for a lefty, he actually uses a right-handed putting grip. So I wonder if that kind of plays in with him being, right hand dominant, where he puts that right hand lower on for a lefty, which is kind of, I just thought it was a curious thing. Can we put to bed this whole like Brian Harmon's a villain for hunting and eating meat that he shoots? Did you see? Did you see
Yeah,
all this on the internet?
it's like nobody can have anything good. Wyndham Clark wins the U.S. Open, and all of a sudden he's a January 6th truther.
Yeah,
Brian Harman goes and wins
he's
the Open
storming the
Championship,
Capitol.
and yeah, it's absurd, man. Why do we do this? Social media is a rough place.
Yeah, like
That
is it
being said, follow us on Twitter and
well,
Instagram.
has it gotten to the point where every player needs a publicist where if they're competing at a major, their publicist just wipes their Twitter of anything that's somewhat demonizing? Like, and it's hunting. Like, it's a pretty standard practice in almost the entire world. So
Pretty standard
that's,
practice across the globe.
I think that's how people have eaten for like thousands of years. Uh, I know that might be a hot take, but I think a lot of people eat meat. So people trying to like weaponize him on Twitter literally because but I think he even bow hunts, which is even more of he hunts for sport. Like he's hiking out in the wilderness. He's not, going to a stocked up yard and hunting there. He's going out in the wilderness. And then he eats, like, I guess he eats a lot of fresh game. So he's kind of the Joe Rogan of the PGA Tour, and I think he owns his own like hunting ranch, which is pretty badass. Like, I'm sure this dude is just flat out like living his own dreams. He owns his own hunting ranch. He loves hunting. He just won a major. He loves golf. So I think Brian Harman is doing pretty well overall, and I don't think he really gives a shit what anyone else has to say on the internet. He doesn't strike me as one of those guys that really cares what the internet has to say about him.
Well, speaking about giving a shit about what people say about him on the internet, this is kind of funny. This popped up. Norm Macdonald, who's a former Saturday Night Live star, he passed away a couple of years ago. I guess in 2018 there was a Twitter debate, and Norm would always say that nobody knows more golf than him. Nobody. And in 2008, he was in a Twitter debate with Robert Dameron about Tiger Woods ahead of the
2018 or
Valspar.
2008?
2018, sorry.
Okay.
The Valspar Championship. And apparently all the announcers were just wrecking Brian Harman's lack of height at 5'7". And Norm Macdonald, Brian Harman actually tweeted at Norm Macdonald and said, "Not every day that a comedy legend sticks up for you. Thanks, Norm." And Norm tweets back, "I love watching you, Brian. You have it all. You can hit it a mile." Wrong. You're not, and not everybody's perfect. And feather it around the greens. But what will win you majors, the Masters likely being your first, wrong again, but close, is your easy perfection with the blade. Respect. So Norm Macdonald was calling Brian Harman major wins back in 2018. And now shout out Norm, RIP Norm.
That's pretty fire. He should have wrote for The Simpsons. He could see the future. Also want to talk about Matthew Jordan. He finished at 4 under this week, just outside of the top 10, but he's an actual member at Royal Liverpool. He's won 3 club championships there, and they interviewed him afterwards because can you imagine playing at your home club? Like, what kind of pressure comes along with that? And he's known for 9 years that it's going to be at his home club. I'm sure he was just a teenager then. He may have not even been a teenager yet. But to like set your sights on like almost a decade in the making, 9 years ago, he knew that this place was going to host an Open Championship, and to go out and play as well as he did relative to where he is on the world stage. He even said, he's like, "I'm most proud of how I performed under the immense amount of pressure that was put on me this week by every single member, that's out there watching him, that's a member at the country or the golf club, and all of his friends, everybody knowing it's your home course," because that almost makes it harder when you're expected to perform that well and you have that expectation. It takes a special kind of player to be able to actually go out and, he didn't win, He didn't, he finished 9 back of the leader, but ultimately to go out and finish where he did for where his golf career is at is very, very impressive. And just very happy for him. He got a standing ovation on 18. And I think I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot about this kid. He looks like he's in his early 20s, so he could end up coming back, when they have it here next, and he could be at the top of the world by that time. You just never know. So very happy for Matthew Jordan. Another thing, one of my favorite things in golf that we had a lot of today on the golf course was the delayed spinning shot, where these balls like hop forward and kind of skip, and then they rip back like 2 seconds later. And it is just so much fun to watch those, because you never know. You have to wait for it to like completely stop, because there was a few shots, like even Harman shot on 17. He hits it like it goes like 30, 40 feet past the flag. And then all of a sudden it comes ripping back out of nowhere, and he ends up having like 20 feet. So that's just like one of my favorite things in golf, is to watch that delayed spin, where it just on those wet greens where it hops a few times and all of a sudden you see it ripping back out of nowhere. I think that's just cool shit.
Yeah, I think with all of the streaming services now, most people are streaming these events, not watching them on cable. But the first couple times that happened this morning when I was up really early, I was like, "Whoa! Like, is my TV glitching?" And is it like, is that spinning when it lands, but it doesn't spin until it takes that like second hop and then just rips back. Yeah. But yeah, that is sick. Like it didn't play like a normal windy, blustery Open, especially with a little bit of rain, but still a tough golf course. And considering other than Harman, nobody finished more than 8 under, which is just 2 under each day. It was a pretty tough test for all of them. The par 5s were not really gettable at all the entire event. They took one of them out and made it a par 4. So, there was it was a tough golf course and a good test of golf. Going in, just a quick look ahead into next year. So we do have the Ryder Cup coming up at Marco Simone Golf Club and Country Club in Rome here at the end of September. So we'll be doing some stuff for that for sure. That's always a great, fun tournament to watch. But PGA Championship in 2024 will be at Valhalla. The 2024 Open Championship will be at Royal Troon in Scotland. Troon, South Ayrshire, Scotland. My great knowledge of Scottish words and geography locations.
One of the courses I played in Scotland is like 2 miles down the coast from Royal Troon. And I've heard it, a few of my buddies that I was actually over there with, they had gone over a trip before me and they played Royal Troon, and they said it was their favorite golf course that they played out of anything, like St. Andrews, Muirfield. It was just, I guess Royal Troon is just awesome. So I'll be very excited to watch that again next year.
And the final one, the U.S. Open in 2024 at Pinehurst, number 2. So
out in North Carolina. All right. Very cool, man. Well, it was a fun major season. I wish we'd have had a little bit more drama. But overall, you got to tip your hat to Brian Harman. The dude is not your typical major winner, and he just went out and dominated all week, made everything he looked at. I think he just bored everybody to death, hitting every single green, hitting every fairway. Even on coming up 18 today was just unflappable. He hits it in the fairway off the tee, hits his layup right in the fairway. Did miss the green, but then he hits a bunker shot to 8 feet, and pretty fitting that he knocks in like an 8-footer for par on 18 when, a lot of guys would have been like, oh, I can make double or triple here and still win the event. Like he just made another easy par and just got out of there. So major props to him. It gives guys like me hope that, you can get out there and succeed in the game of golf, because you don't have to look like an NFL linebacker to succeed in this game. It's just an old school way of thinking, so I really enjoyed the week.
Yeah, shout out to mini Brian Harman winning the 2023 Open Championship. Make sure you're tuning in each week to Big Drive Energy. Like and subscribe on the YouTube. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. We'll be back the following week after the 3M Open here in the Twin Cities this week. If you're following us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Drive Energy and Big Drive Energy Pod, we're going to tweet out some pics and post some pics. We also got some reels. We got Pro Shop reels coming back. So be on the lookout for that. We're the OG Pro Shop guys. None of this Hermitage Golf Club nonsense. Like, this was our bit, and we're going to take our bit back because we own it and it's ours and we made it cool. So thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. You got a whole Sunday afternoon to enjoy now that golf is over, which is kind of sad, but it was also fun being up super early and having it on. We'll talk to you guys next week after the 3M Open. Peace.